Hey guys, welcome back to the Discipline Life Podcast, the place where we talk all about power differential relationships and domestic discipline. I'm Aria, and this is my husband, Coda.
Hello, everyone. I'm back.
We are very happy that Coda's back.
I've been telling her all week, I'm back.
Last week's podcast went well. I think we had a good conversation, but I was definitely missing the back and forth of having Coda here.
I was missed. Thank you. I'm glad.
On today's podcast, we are going to be talking about how to implement change into your dynamic and the different ways that you can go about making changes.
Yes.
I was like, this
Sorry, she kind of looked at me like, I'm like, yes, I agree with that.
This is where you talk.
I guess we should first start with, sometimes what people do in any situation is the moment they hear the word change. Oh, no, that's not a good thing. And I heard this saying that we all like change to a point. And that could be true sometimes.
Well, I was going to say it can be like when you're talking about implementing change, it can be change, but it can also just be growth and development.
Yes. And I think if you look at change as growth, and as you said, development, which is a good word, then change is not nearly as scary as opposed to if you look at change as, oh no, I've got to change something. I've got to come out of my comfort zone, which sometimes changes that way, but that's a very negative way to look at that as opposed to a little bit more positive.
Well, because no one is ever going to be completely stagnant in their relationship and in their dynamic,
or at least
really
we hope
in
not,
life.
right? Right. If you're stagnant, that could be a problem.
And so change is just kind of part of life. It's part of relationships. It's part of growth. And so we're all constantly changing and growing and developing new needs and maybe outgrowing some needs that we previously had. And so, this is a topic that's really prevalent to really anybody out there.
And I think when we talk about change, there's a lot of things that we've already talked about on the podcast before that where Aria and I have mentioned where we've had to make changes in our dynamic, where we've had to make changes to rules, where we've had to make changes to how we approach things like maintenance and punishments. And tell me if you think I'm wrong. I think that pretty much all the changes we've made, even though at the time we weren't sure, they've all turned out well.
I think you're right. Definitely there's been trial and error, and there's been some changes that we have attempted that didn't fit. And so, there's been some things that we've attempted that have kind of fallen by the wayside just because they weren't a good fit for us. But everything that has stuck around has been a positive change.
I'm not sure how to take that. I'm just kidding. But yes, everything that we currently have has been a positive change. And I think what we look at subconsciously, not consciously, but I think if we were in terms of our relationship, we are looking at ways to change because we are purposely trying to make things better. We don't. You used the word stagnate earlier, which I think is a very good word, because if you're not looking for ways to change or make the relationship better, make the dynamic better, then you run into this issue of being stagnated, being just, what's the word? Stale. That's the word that I'm looking for, stale. And that's the last thing you want for your relationship, is to have things be stale.
Right. And you just mentioned, like, we are going into a season of change in our own relationship. And that is going to be, I think, I anticipate it being difficult. I anticipate change being uncomfortable, but I also anticipate it coming out the other side in a better place.
And are you referring to now that my schooling is a little bit more behind, we're going back into a time of change?
We are at a place right now where we can focus a little bit more on our relationship. Not completely, because there's, life still happens every day all around us, but we can focus a lot more energy on our relationship. And I think that we're just at a point where we need to take that next step, or I fear that we might get into a cycle of being stagnant and potentially becoming stale.
Yeah, I think yes, and sorry, there's a lot of thoughts that hit my brain, and so I was like, wait a minute, I'm going to agree with that first, and then here's the next part. Man, I was only gone a week, but I feel like I'm out of practice. With everything that's gone on, and we'll just kind of share with you with everything that's gone on with the performance that I was doing and everything. It through, you guys all know, you take a vacation, doesn't matter what it is, it can sometimes throw the scheduling off. It can throw the dynamic off because of the way the scheduling is. And so, are you laughing because you've already talked about this?
No.
And when all of that stuff happens, you, to a certain extent, have to hit the reset button. But I will tell you, I'm getting back in the dynamic of trying to why are you laughing?
I'm not laughing
Getting
at
back
all.
in the dynamic of leading again and of holding things. She's going, and holding Arya accountable for things and making sure that the rules are followed. Yep, sorry, you're going to have to go to that one. But that can be hard, even if week vacation. What happened with my performance? All of the things, and you were approaching the holidays. That can even make it harder because over the holidays you got maybe family coming in and out of.
Or you're traveling.
You're traveling. Yes, you're traveling. All of these things mess with the dynamic and can mess with the consistency and the good habits that you're trying to build and have built. And so one of the things that I've learned through this process, and that we're going to try to get back on the horse here with, is if something like this happens similarly next time, steps to take in order to prevent the fallout, for lack of a better word. I'm not sure what the word is that I'm searching for there, but so it doesn't get off track too much. And I don't want it to sound like, oh man, we're completely off the horse right now, where the wagon's completely turned over. Arya's giving me this look of, yeah, it pretty much is. I don't think it's that bad, but we definitely have some readjusting to do. That's the change coming.
I agree with you. I think that we are at a place right now where it's unique because we didn't completely stop anything, but we definitely kind of veered off track with how busy everything was.
Because we had the week before the performance, we had a good friend come into town to visit us. We had not seen for 11, 12 years. And then we had the performance, and my family came into town to see that. So that's why this is fresh on our minds, because it's exactly what you're about to experience. Some of you are in the holidays who are traveling, or you have family coming in. It's no different than what we just experienced here, and it can definitely throw a wrench in things. And I will tell you, I was not fully prepared. I thought, oh, it'll be fine. I'm just going to do my usual thing, and I'll be able to we'll be able to still do all the same things. So not true. I was so blindsided by everything.
Well, because mental focus was shifted. Just the obligations of being physically out of the house.
Yep.
No, there was just a lot going on, and I think that we've kind of covered what we've been going through and how we are needing to approach change, but really, I think that it would be good to shift into how to make changes.
Yeah, how to make changes. Yeah. No, I just wanted to catch them up on
Yeah,
where we're
for
at
sure.
because hopefully, just real quick, go off on a little bit of a tangent. Hopefully, you watch this podcast because hopefully you're interested in knowing, are we having some of the same challenges that you're having? And the answer is yes. And so we're on here bearing our soul and telling you, hey, we don't have it all figured out. We're not 100% got this all buttoned up, and so here's the challenges that we're going through. And hopefully, if you're facing those same challenges as we are, this will hopefully you can come alongside with us, and we can help you through the transition as we're going through this transition as well.
Yeah, because like you mentioned, it's a busy time of year for a lot of people, and that can just pose its own challenges. And if you have found yourself in a place where you have inadvertently or knowingly gone through a period where things have gotten off track and you want to get them back, or you've just gotten to a place where maybe you've hit the capacity of where you are right now and you want to make changes to grow your relationship further. And that's kind of where we are on both ends. I think that we definitely had some busy weeks, and we kind of got off track, and we need to get back into our roles and back into our the flow of our relationship. But we also, I feel like, are ready for the next step of, maybe making things a little bit more strict.
Seamless.
Yeah, just maybe have some more strict accountability, some more. And so I feel like we're kind of at that point where we want to take that next step in our dynamic, as well as get back into the routine of our dynamic.
I'm so glad you brought this up because it just sparked something. As the head of household, I will tell you that, yes, for me, it is, and this is in every aspect of my life. It's not just in my relationship with Arya, but what we're about to do, what I'm trying to instill in myself and make a habits out of, are helping me, or other areas in my life where I need to step up and do that. And what is that? It's taking more of that leadership role. I mean, every time I'm thinking, oh, I'm finally being the good leader, then I realize, no, I'm not really leading well, which is strange for me because I've always been told that I'm a good leader, and I've always felt like I've led well. However, Ari, I think hopefully will agree with this, or you may not. Recently, I have found that maybe because of other aspects of my life where I've compromised that a little bit, it's compromised here, and I need to get those things back in order to be a more effective leader in our relationship. But that starts with not just turning that switch on and off in this relationship. That's being that constantly. That's being that constant leader, being that person always, because it's not something, if you're just being the leader in your relationship and it's a switch that you can't turn that switch on and off. It's got to be something that's on constantly in order to be successful.
Well, because these roles transcend relationships, right? They transcend those areas where, and that's not to say that if you are in a job where you don't have any leadership in your place of employment and you will have to, submit yourself under a boss, that doesn't mean that you can't come home and then lead your home.
Right.
And so I think that it's a good distinction to make, that you want to be a person of integrity across the board. You want to have those skills of communication and of being able to assert yourself. But that doesn't mean that, if I can't lead at work, then that means I can't lead at home.
Well, and you bring up an interesting point. It made me think of this really great book that I read years ago that I probably should reread. And it's called Leading from the Third Chair. And what it talks about is that just because you're not maybe necessarily the CEO of the company, or you're not totally in charge of everything, doesn't mean you can't still lead, and that there aren't still people that are probably below you that you need to lead. And that leadership that's a state of mind rather than necessarily a title or a position. It's a state of mind. And so there are times where, so the whole premise of this book, spoilers, but I would still tell you to go out and read it because I'm going to paraphrase. But the whole premise of this book is that regardless of whether you're in charge or wherever you are in any type of relationship or any type of job or business, whatever it is, that you don't have to be the person that is considered the boss in order to lead. You can lead by being a good follower. So in other words, if you lead by example, if your boss says, I need you to do X, and all the other employees are complaining, but you take that lead and say, no, come on, guys, we can get on board with this. We can do this. Let's get behind his vision and go for it. That's leading from the third chair. And I think that's really, really important in order to help this relationship, to always be thinking of how you can be a leader.
Right. I just wanted to make that distinction because I didn't want to give anybody the impression that if they don't lead in one aspect of life, that they can't lead in their relationship.
Sure.
Or vice versa. If
Right.
you are the submissive partner and you have a job that requires leadership or requires a certain level of assertiveness, you don't have to bring that into your relationship. You can still be a good submissive partner that follows and comes under the leadership of your head of household.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. And so, but that is something that, again, that can be a change for not only the person leading, but the person being led. And that is not to say that, and Aria, I'm going to try to set the table here, and you can expand on this. Because I think the premise sometimes, or the misconception can be, okay, so now that you're following the leader, that doesn't mean you get a say. It doesn't mean that you're, some people look at that and say, oh, that just means I follow blindly, that I'm not allowed to speak up, that I'm not allowed to give feedback, I'm not allowed to give these things.
And that is a very common misconception, and we do have a whole podcast on the misconception of submission being a silent passive role.
Right.
Because it is not. As the one who's submitting myself under the leadership of Coda, I understand that he gets the final say. He gets the final decision. However, I have a unique perspective to offer, and I get to, when appropriate and with appropriate communication, I get to give him my perspective, give him my feedback, and give him my advice with the understanding that he does not have to take it. Now, I would say 8 times out of 10, he does end up finding at least some middle ground that takes my advice into consideration, because he takes my perspective of value, like he values my perspective.
Indeed.
And that's also to say that I don't have some areas of our relationship that I get some level of authority that he has given me in order to make decisions without necessarily checking with him. And though, that's typically very specific scenarios, and he has given me that reign to do that. And so, following the leadership of the head of household is not a passive role. It's not, I don't sit around all day waiting for direct orders. I don't go through my checklist every day of things I need to get done. And if it's not on the list, oh, I guess it just doesn't get done today. Because that's not realistic to life. That's not something that makes a lot of sense for most people. And it definitely doesn't make sense for us. Where, you know, I know that there's certain things that need to be done. I know that there's certain expectations to be met. And I have some leeway within those expectations and within those tasks to prioritize and to make decisions within that sphere.
Yes. So knowing that she gets feedback in that could be a place you're having to change a little bit. You're having to change where maybe your partner didn't feel like they're getting the proper feedback, or they're feeling like you're not taking that position as a leader well enough. And I feel like now I'm almost giving too much, and I feel like I'm having to take that leadership position. So you have to change where the line is. And I'm not saying, oh, you crossed the line, you can't say anything here. What I mean by the line is redefine where that is. Figure out where your leadership really needs to be honed and needs to be shown in certain moments, and that may be something that needs to change. Because again, maybe you're like me. I'm just going to use myself as an example. Maybe you're like me at this point where I'm realizing, oh, I thought I was leading, but not as much as I realize, I guess, now that I should be. And Arya has felt that, hey, I feel like without even realizing it, I'm having to take on some of that leadership role, and I don't like that. I need you to change it back to where we're having this good dynamic again, where we're making sure that we're functioning together. This relationship is working, but things are not being compromised. And so we're having to change things. We're having to look at things and say, okay, what is working, what is not, and again, change those things that are not working. And it just so happens that I need to change some of the ways that I lead, that I've been leading.
Just always consider your limitations, your schedule, your personality, your roles, all of that needs to be taken into consideration when making changes and when figuring out how to make your relationship function to its best capacity.
Can we park on something you just said that was really good? Because I'm really bad at this. Limitations. Knowing what your limits are. I can say recently, with everything that's gone on, was not paying attention to where my limits are. I went way over that. And that affected how I've been able to lead and how it's affected our relationship. Don't worry, everything's good. But what I'm trying to say is that it affected how the dynamic that we were working really hard to build and some of the habits that we were really getting into, it derailed a lot of that process. And it's because, and you all know who I'm talking about when I say this, my inability to say no. Those of you who are like me, who sometimes you just feel like, oh, I can do it all. We can't. We do have limits, and we need to remember what our priorities are, especially these relationships. And if it's going to hurt or affect that relationship, it's going to hurt the limits of where you've set, these boundaries that you set. As much as you want to do something, or as much as you think, oh, I can do it all, you have to just step back and say, no, I'm sorry, I can't do that.
And so that gets me into the style of how to change things. And I know that Coda and I both have very different perspectives on how to approach change. When we first started our domestic discipline journey, if you will, when I first brought up the idea of using especially physical punishment, because if you've listened to that podcast, it's almost 9 months old at this point. But we talked about how we got into domestic discipline and how we really tried having a system of accountability without physical punishment, and how that really didn't work long term for us. And so when I brought up the idea of using physical punishment, that was obviously a huge change to our relationship at that point. We had never really done anything like that. And I am the type of person that you learn how to swim by just being pushed into the deep end. You flail around a little bit and then you figure it out and you swim. And Coda is very much a baby steps into progress. So when we first got into this, I was like, okay, this is what I want. This is what we're going to do. You've agreed to it. We're going to, establish all these rules, set all these boundaries, and we're just going to dive in and we're going to do all the things. And Coda was like, no, I think we need to just focus on one thing at a time, and we need to, start small and test the waters and slowly implement different things. And and he took that approach with the physical discipline as well. With the spanking, he took the approach of like, we're going to try the least amount possible first, and then we can always increase. But I think that his thought process was that if he went overboard, that it would be harder to come back from that. It would be harder to fix that damage, rather than start small, slowly increase until you find your comfort zone with that.
Yeah, and maybe, just saying, maybe that's something I need to change a little bit, because sometimes, would you use the word trepidatiousness? Being
that
trepidatious can be a bad thing, because if you're a little too trepidatious, my father used to use this as an analogy. If you're a little too trepidatious when you cross the street, if you don't get out of the way quick enough because you're too trepidatious, you're going to get run over by a car, just as if you're too eager to run onto the street and you don't check that a car's coming first. You have to find a balance between, hey, let's jump in and do this, and hey, let's make sure we know where we're going. But either side can be really, really bad.
And so I would say that between the two of us, we kind of like fall into both of those extremes, and we've really had to come together and collaborate to get to a more balanced approach to change in our own relationship.
And honestly, I think that's one reason why our relationship has worked, because she is very much, hey, let's dive into this head first. Let's go. We'll figure it out as we go. I'm let's get a game plan. Let's get a 5-year plan together. Let's get a 10-year plan together. And we've been able to find a healthy medium in both areas. I think that has served us well.
But because you're the leader and you have set the pace for this relationship to a certain extent with my input, and it's been a collaborative effort, but ultimately you get to decide. And so you have been the one to set the pace of the relationship. We have taken that slower approach. And so that's why I say I feel like we've been on this baby step long enough. It's kind of time to inch up a little bit.
Yes, and
in some areas.
You're absolutely right. And it's going to feel uncomfortable, because I'm going to tell you right now, it's uncomfortable for me a little bit. That's okay. Change is uncomfortable. Don't be afraid of it being uncomfortable. But it's definitely going to feel like I have this feeling like, okay, I'm stepping out. I know this is probably going to be good. I know this is a good change. However, I was comfortable over there. I don't want to go over here. And I know eventually once I get over here, it will become a habit. It will become comfortable. It will become the area that I'm familiar with, just like where I'm at right now. But to get over there can be kind of hard, because you just go, well, I've never been over there before. Well, yeah, that's the point. Well, I don't know if I want to go over there. What if it's uncomfortable?
I think that because we have grown up in a generation that has always had the internet and
Well, wait a minute. I didn't always have the internet.
well, close enough.
I didn't have the internet till I was a sophomore in high school.
Close enough.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Sorry, I'm getting caught up on details again.
You are derailing me.
Sorry.
Because we grew up in a generation that has always had the internet, we don't really understand the concept of going into uncharted territory, because we've always had GPS, we've always had navigation, we've always had someone that has gone before us, charted the path, and told us exactly where to go to have success. And sometimes in relationships, and especially in domestic discipline, we don't always have that. Even with, if you're listening to this podcast, I'm assuming that you've done some research. Maybe you've, read some blogs. You've gotten more information than just us, right? But that doesn't mean that information is going to translate into your relationship directly. It's still uncharted territory when you start implementing these changes into your relationship. And so for that, it can be very uncomfortable. It can be very uncertain. You can maybe feel like you're getting lost. But if you know where you want to end up, getting there, even if you take a wrong turn, you can kind of course correct. You can get back in that direction. You will end up where you intend to end up, as long as you have that goal in mind. So I would say, like, when you're implementing change, whether you take a fast-paced approach, a slower approach, somewhere in the middle, when you're implementing change, the first thing that you need to do, and this is what we're going to do, is really talk about it. What are your goals? Where do you see the need for improvement? Where do you want to make the changes, and why? And what do you want that change to ultimately lead to? What do you want the outcome to look like? So you talk about those goals, you set the goals, you set the outcomes, you talk about why you feel that that is a point that needs improvement. And then you create an action plan. And so if the goal is, I need stricter accountability, then the action plan, and you can say, I need stricter accountability in order to meet my goals, in order to take the tasks seriously. And I feel like that is an area that needs improvement in our relationship right now. Then the action plan can be, I no longer get warnings when I fall short of these goals. Therefore, there's more tangible, more immediate consequences. And so that's just an example. How that looks for every relationship, and even how that looks for every rule, every task, every change, is going to be different. But you want to recognize the problem, form a solution, and recognize what the end goal looks like, and then create a path to get there. And realize that because you are drawing your own map here, you may get some things wrong along the way. Don't be afraid to say, hey, wait, this isn't working. Let's reroute a little bit.
How many times have we already done that?
Oh, yeah.
Like a lot. Like a lot. So it's not like this has been one straight path for us either. And so you would think, maybe Ari will say, oh, yeah, for her, it's no big deal anymore. But for me, you would think I'd be more of accustomed to realizing, oh, okay, we just need to change and we need to refocus. But it's still, the change is still uncomfortable for me.
It's difficult because in one area, like, I just want things to be, I want that in that overall end goal. Like, that's the part where I'm like, let's just jump into that deep end, and let's just figure it out so we can get there faster. But I understand the wisdom in taking it one step at a time and acclimating yourself to changes over time so that you can have better long-term success. but yeah, we have definitely had some areas where it's like, okay, that's not working. And just don't let pride get in the way of reassessing when something's not working. Don't let, um, oh, don't be afraid to approach something and say like this isn't working. And as a head of household, don't be afraid to say, hey, I thought that this was going to work. It's not working. So we need to go approach this differently. Because it creates a sense of security for the submissive partner to know that you are analyzing and recognizing when things need to change, and even when things need to change within that sphere. And also, as the submissive partner, don't be afraid to go to your head of household and say, hey, this isn't working to create the changes that we need to make. Like, this is creating, maybe it's creating resentment, maybe it's creating fear, maybe it's creating negative emotions that are counterproductive to the success of the process. Go to them and just explain that to them, but also be open to how they choose to approach it. So if they choose not to make a change and just continue forward, do your best. But ultimately, as the head of household, you're responsible. You are responsible to take that feedback and try to make a decision to the best of your ability for success.
And this is no different than athletes do this, performers, CEOs of companies. I mean, look at companies that will reassess where they've gone wrong with something, with a product, or with how this has happened a lot over the last few years with different things with different companies. So relationships can be the exact same way, just like Aria was saying. Companies and everybody approach things when a change needs to happen the same way. And so don't be afraid to sit down and say, okay, we've got some things to change, and as we approach, if you can believe it, as we approach a new year, this is the perfect time to do it. Perfect time to do it. But have it also not be a resolution that you don't follow through on, a resolution that you do follow through on.
Well, and to that, most people don't follow through on their resolutions because they take that jumping into the deep end approach, right?
That's very true. Very true. Yes.
Which is why I see the wisdom in taking small steps to ensure long-term success.
Yes. My father used to say, try to just improve 1% a day. And I thought that was kind of weird, because I was like, no, I want to improve 100%. He goes, no, but think about it. If you improve 1% a day, by the end of the year, you've improved 365%. You're better than 100%. And I can tell you, I haven't been taking that approach, and I need to take that approach more, about improving in every aspect of my life, but especially in our relationship. Okay, did I improve our relationship today by 1%? And if the answer is yes, then that's a victory.
So, well, I think we're going to wrap it up.
Yeah, it was good. We can go to the post show.
So if you want to see the podcast in its video form, see all of my very animated facial expressions during this podcast,
It was good.
You can head down to the link in the description box and sign up for our Patreon. You will get the video version of the podcast, as well as other bonus content, including the post show that we are going to record now. So anyway, like this video if you enjoyed this conversation, and if you're not already, please do consider subscribing. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.